friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Amanda. So you're gonna not want to miss this video. I've got some delicious fall soups all made in the crock pot for you coming up. So y'all, I am so excited for this video. I have 3 easy and delicious crock pot soup recipes for you. You can't beat crock pot meals, and today is the first day of fall, so what a more perfect day to have, you know, a bunch of soup recipes to try out. So I hope that y'all enjoy these. This video is actually part of a collab hosted by Kat at Southern Farm and Kitchen. Make sure you check out her channel and the entire playlist. Everything will be listed in the description box, so check that out. She makes some delicious recipes over on her channel, so I know you'll enjoy her channel, and then there'll be lots of yummy soup recipes for all of us to enjoy in the playlist. I cannot wait to check that out. Our weather here lately has been really dreary and rainy, and so soup has been the perfect thing to have for that. So I can't wait to get even more recipes for soup to enjoy throughout this fall. Fall really is my favorite time of year, so I cannot wait for all the fall things. So excited for that. So happy first day of fall. And also, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I would love it if you like what you see, the videos I do, that you hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. Also, give me a thumbs up if you're excited to see this video. But let's go ahead and get into these recipes. So first up, we're going to be making a delicious crock pot beef stew. Now y'all, I love Cracker Barrel's beef stew. I want to say they don't even sell it anymore, but it was always so good. So I kind of tried to make it as close as I could to Cracker Barrel's. I did use a recipe, but I made a few changes based on what I remember from Cracker Barrel. And so I've just got, I diced up that onion, or kind of chunked it up. And then I've got about a pound of stew meat in the crock pot there, and then I'm going to kind of chunk up these potatoes too. I'll make sure to link the recipe below, along with all any changes I made to it too. I always try to do that to where y'all have the recipe, and if I do make changes, I do try to note that down there too, just because that if you see and it looks good to you, then you knew what I changed about it. So we're going to add those potatoes into the crock pot here. All of mine didn't fit. I did several. To me, I feel like it's so hard to know how much is going to fit in a crock pot. That's why I actually only did 1 pound of meat. The recipe mentioned 2 pounds, but I felt like that unless I used my big crock pot, that everything was not going to fit in here. So we've also got I just took some baby carrots and cut them in half and put them in there, as well as some celery that I just had frozen, and maybe a tablespoon of tomato paste that I had frozen as well, and then a can of petite diced tomatoes. I used an entire carton of beef broth in here, and we're going to also add in some seasonings like some Worcestershire sauce, garlic, salt, pepper, dried parsley, all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to have several different things go in there to help flavor it. It's still pretty simple though. I mean, really, like I said, those are pretty basic, seasonings. So I almost thought about putting a bay leaf in here, but I didn't end up doing that. And this was great, so I don't think it necessarily needed it. And y'all, this is so simple. I mean, really, it is pretty much a dump and go kind of crock pot recipe, because really, except for a little bit of chopping, and honestly, you can buy chopped already frozen onions. You can buy a lot of this stuff already chopped if you want to do that and take advantage of those kind of time-saving things. But I'll tell you what really is handy to me is like having that chopped celery. Like, I'll buy celery and then I chop a bunch of it up and I put it in the freezer, and then I pull it out for anything I need cooked. Now, of course, it won't work if you need it fresh, but for cooked things, it's great. And so I love corn in my beef stew, so I went ahead and added some corn to it. The recipe also called for peas, but I'm not a huge, fan of peas, so I did not put that in there. And then we're just going to mix that up together, let all the seasonings kind of disperse, put the lid on it, and let it cook. So it's that simple. I mean, you really can't beat that, and it's so delicious. But we're going to go ahead and make some cornbread. Now, y'all, I usually don't measure my stuff for cornbread. The way my mom always did it was she just dumped cornmeal, like the mix, the buttermilk cornmeal mix, and then she would do some milk and some oil and an egg, and we never really measured. We just mainly looked for consistency, and I've never had it turn out bad, so I don't think it's necessarily something you have to measure. But, you know, I'm gonna link a recipe that I found that seemed pretty close to what I do. I did kind of measure this. I did end up using about close to 3 cups, I think, of cornmeal mix. Probably about a cup and a half to a cup and 3/4 of milk, maybe a tablespoon of oil, and then, and of course, 1 egg. So you don't, it's really not something I feel like you have to be exact on, but I will link that recipe down below. That it seemed pretty basic using the cornmeal mix instead of adding extra things to it. So that's super easy if you buy that cornmeal mix, and it's always been really delicious too for us. So that's always just what we do. Now here I'm just kind of showing you the consistency, that way you kind of know what, you know, it needs to look like. And now this skillet, the cast iron skillet, is preheated in the oven, so that oil is good and hot so that it starts almost cooking that. And you can see it start kind of sizzling there at the edges. It starts cooking that. It's going to give you that delicious crisp crust on that cornbread, and it is so amazing like that. Cast iron cornbread is the best cornbread. Once you have that, you won't even want to make it any other way. And we're just going to bake that in the oven at 400 degrees for about 30 to 45 minutes until it's nice and golden brown on the top. And now this is our beef stew. We're going to thicken it with just a little bit of cornstarch and water. The recipe actually said flour and water, but I decided to use cornstarch instead. And I think I just did like a tablespoon of water and a tablespoon of cornstarch. And you can do a little more if you want it a little thicker, but that was plenty for me. And so that worked out really well. But again, you know, you can do it however thick you'd like it. And here's our cornbread, all nice and golden brown out of the oven. And y'all, this is a meal that just can't be beat. I absolutely love beef stew with cornbread. I just crumble my cornbread up in there and eat it all together. But this was so good. I wish I had more left over. That went quickly. We had like enough for the next day, a little bit, and that was it. So next up, we have cheeseburger soup. And I'm going to get started cutting up these potatoes here for the soup. Now, I have never had any kind of soup like this, but it looked really, really good. And I thought, I've got to try this and see, you know, if it's good. Some people mention that they like to serve like dill pickles with it, or like even some people put a little pickle juice in it. So if you want to do something like that, I did try just a couple of slices of pickles and it was fine. I didn't really necessarily, you know, love it like that, but I liked the soup a lot. The soup was really good. I really think the soup would actually be delicious with pasta. So if you want to switch out this for pasta instead of potatoes, that would work great. In fact, that's what we're going to do next time we make it. The potatoes were great, but it's just, we really felt like we would really like to have some pasta in there. So I've got the onions diced up there. We're adding those potatoes to the crock pot, and the onions, celery, and some shredded carrots. And then we're going to add in some seasonings and let this all cook in some chicken broth. Now, the seasonings were like basil, parsley, you know, that type of thing. Obviously, with anything like this, you can always feel free to add stuff. You know, a lot of times I add garlic powder to things. Of course, I did put just a little bit of salt and some black pepper in there. I, you know, always watch my sodium, so I kind of, you know, go light on the salt. But y'all use however much you feel comfortable using. I feel like any of that's to taste, so definitely do what you feel like that you would like yours to be. But I just kind of made sure to submerge all that in the chicken broth, and then we actually cook that for about 4 to 5 hours, basically just until the potatoes are tender. Now I'm just shredding up some sharp cheddar cheese here that we're going to use in the soup. It also said you could use Velveeta. I just don't typically have Velveeta on hand, so I just use sharp cheddar cheese. I think this was actually an extra sharp cheddar, so any of those sharp cheddars, I feel like it's going to give you a really good taste to it. Also, someone said they use pepper jack in it, and I thought, ooh, I bet that'd be good. I think all pepper jack would be a little spicy for me, but half and half of something, that would be really good. So I'm just adding my ground beef in here. I've told y'all before, like I cook my ground beef up in batches and then I freeze it. It is such a time saver. I will link that video below where I talk about how I do that and show y'all my process. But my goodness, it saves so much time. It's so easy. I just popped that in the microwave and thawed it out, and then I put it in here. We're also adding in some half and half. The recipe actually called for to make kind of like a roux and then milk and do that, but someone said they use half and half instead, and I thought that would just save me a step, and I'm going to do that, and that worked out perfect. So I highly recommend if you have half and half on hand, you can use that. You could probably do whole milk too, you know, something a little more richer. And you could always thicken it with some cornstarch if you wanted to, like a cornstarch slurry if you'd like. So we added that cheese in there. This is just going to cook just a little while longer, about 30 more minutes, just until the cheese is melted and everything kind of is warmed through and comes together, because obviously, you know, that milk is cold. And so, y'all, this was so good. There were no leftovers. I was shocked. I mean, none. We literally took care of the whole pot that night. So here it is, all finished. I cannot recommend this recipe enough. It was a hit for us, and we're definitely going to be making it again. Like I said, I think we're going to try it with pasta and see how that is too. So good. Next up is chicken tortilla soup. I have been making this recipe for a long time. I remember when we moved into our last place before this one, that this was actually like our first meal that we had there. I made that, and it was just such a neat memory. My daughter always talks about that, so she loves it. But we're going to get started by cutting up some onions. You're just going to dice those up, and we're going to add in some cooked chicken to our crock pot. I ended up adding a little more. I was trying to have the recipe I usually make, but I ended up feeling like I needed too much chicken, or a little more chicken, and I feel like I got a little too much chicken broth in there by accident. So I'll have the recipe link below, then you'll have all the right measurements. But I've added in some green chilies, a can of crushed tomatoes. It's 28-ounce can, drained and rinsed black beans, a can of diced tomatoes, some garlic, chicken broth, and we're going to add in several different seasonings like cumin, Mexican oregano, garlic powder, chili powder, and a little bit of salt. Now, this is one of those recipes, again, you can make it your own if there's some seasons you'd like to do. If you want to make it a little spicier and throw in, you know, maybe a spicier chili powder or anything like that, you can really make this your own. So many soups, I feel like it's so easy to do that, you know, just to change it up however you'd like to do it. And soups are really easy to like taste and adjust rather than some foods. Some foods aren't as easy to do that with, but I've just added in some corn here as well. And we're just going to stir those ingredients together. And this will cook in the crock pot for about 4 to 6 hours on high. Really, everything is like cooked in here. It's just you're bringing everything to temperature, and then you're also helping those seasonings really disperse throughout the soup and get all, you know, intermingled with all the ingredients and all that good stuff. So here it is done, and y'all, this is so good. Like, you can serve it with so many different things. We do tortilla strips, sour cream, avocados, maybe like a cheese quesadilla. You could dip that in that. That would be so delicious. Tortilla chips if you want to on the side. So many great ideas that you can eat with this. It's really, really good, and we really enjoy it. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. If you're coming over from the collab, again, I'd love to have you as part of my YouTube family. So hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Also, thank you so much, Kat, for hosting this collab. I can't wait to see everyone's videos. And make sure you check out Kat's channel, linked in the description box below, as well as the entire playlist. I hope you each have a blessed day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.